Welcome to Stop the Fight, episode 18, and today we're discussing the Lomachenko and the Gervonta Davis fights this weekend. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, though!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong man, good boy, just...
Vasily Lomachenko, the 33-year-old, 14-2, 10 knockout boxing phenom, who is coming off his first, let's call it, undisputed loss. There's very few people outside of Lomachenko himself who believe that he did not lose the Teofimo Lopez fight. He lost that fight, guys. He lost that fight. I gave him every single round possible, and I still came to 115, 113. That 12th round hinged it for me. What went wrong? Well, we could talk about injuries and so on and so forth, and all those things went wrong. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. Lomachenko is undersized for 135 pounds. He's just undersized. He looks practically unbeatable at 126, maybe even 130. But at 135, these guys are significantly bigger. You've now seen it in every single fight he's had at 135. Think about the Linares fight. Yeah, that was a prime Linares. Yes, Linares is a very good fighter. Yes, we just saw Linares nearly stop Devin Haney. Yes, so having said all that, Lomachenko had stopped Linares himself, but had problems. He was knocked down. The size was apparent. It took the pedigree of Lomachenko to beat Linares. The skill, the actual talent that's reaching well above where he should be competitive. Then he gets Anthony Crawler out of there in 4 rounds. That was not a competitive fight. But then we have Luke Campbell. And against Luke Campbell, while Lomachenko very clearly beat Luke Campbell and even knocked him down in the 11th, Lomachenko had more problems than anticipated in that fight. I think Luke Campbell was plus 1,800 or some absurdity like that. And while Lomachenko won wide, at points Luke Campbell was able to trouble him. So coming into the Teofimo Lopez fight, I did believe Lomachenko was going to win. I did believe it. I believe Lomachenko was going to be too quick. I believe Lomachenko was going to be too good. Now, when the actual fight happened, what do we see? We saw a gun-shy Lomachenko pretty much give up the first, I think he gave it the first 6 of 7 rounds. I think I gave him only round 2. I think I gave Teofimo 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Right? That was already the 6 rounds. Lomachenko then takes 2, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and he loses the 12th convincingly. I thought the rounds were convincing. I thought it could even be wider, right? I know some people are like Andre Ward's scorecard has it a draw, and I think you have to be so generous to Lomachenko. Even at 115, 113, I'm being generous. I really think the score could have been 116, 112. The rounds that Lomachenko did win, yes, they were very clearly won by Lomachenko. And at one point, I think in the 10th and the 11th, Teofimo looked very uncomfortable in there. And if we can get the second half of Lomachenko in a full fight with Teofimo, yes, he'd win. If, right? And to use a little cruel joke, if my aunt had a dick, she'd be my uncle. So saying ifs about Lomachenko and the Teofimo fight, they don't exist. We saw what did happen. But it was a shoulder injury. Indeed, it was a shoulder injury. But this is what happens when you have a fighter with damn near 400 amateur fights at 33 years old in a lighter weight class. The body cannot handle that level of fighting for that long without breaking down. Guys, being injured and coming through injury and being nagged by injury and being dragged down by injury is all part of what it takes to be a great fighter. If Calzaghe never breaks his hands, maybe he's a good puncher. And we're talking about a different fighter. We're talking about a completely different fighter. This is the case. Same thing with Floyd. Maybe Floyd has many more knockouts. Maybe he's a different kind of fighter if his hands weren't as brittle. But they are. And if Roy Jones never gets, knocked out in the second Tarver fight because his chin is made of iron, maybe things are different. But you can't look at it. The fighter's ability to handle injury and to recover from it or to avoid it is part of what makes a fighter the total package. You cannot just look at what a fighter is like at 100% if he's not at 100% all the time. That means you don't. That means that fighter is not what you think of him at his ultimate peak. Do I think Lomachenko can beat Teofimo in a rematch? I don't know. You know on this channel that I'm very big on age. I'm very, very big on age, especially in the lighter weight classes. Unless, like with Nonito Donaire, there's just like the physics don't make sense. Most of the time, if a fighter is over the age of, let's say, 35, certainly I will never pick them to win. And Lomachenko's already 33. I don't know how many good fights he has at the elite level. I think he's beyond it already. We've already seen the best Lomachenko. The best Lomachenko is probably the guy you saw 4 years ago against Nicholas Walters, against Rigondeaux, against even Gary Russell Jr. What he did to Gary Russell was amazing. He literally shut that guy out. That fight was not particularly competitive. You know, Gary Russell showed his pedigree, but that fight was at least 116, 112, and probably could have been 117, 111 for Lomachenko. You know, what he did to Walters, completely shutting him down. That fight was kind of close for 3 rounds, and then it was it. If that fight continues, Walters, it becomes a bad knockout victim. You know, that Lomachenko is not the same Lomachenko we're seeing right now. It's just not. We're seeing a slight diminishment. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't be great. You can be absolutely great still. And he could be. And here's his comeback. He is fighting Masayoshi Nakatani, who is 19-1 with 13 knockouts. He's going to be 4.5 inches taller than Lomachenko, who's 5'7". Nakatani is 5'11 and 1/2. He is a big, big guy. Now, what is Nakatani known for? Well, he actually gave Teofimo Lopez quite a bit of a fight. The scorecards were wide, but you can tell Teofimo was not particularly comfortable in there with Nakatani. Nakatani then goes, and he fights Felix Verdejo. And we obviously know the tragedy of what's become with Felix Verdejo. And it's, again, I don't want to talk about that. I'm not going to discuss his personal life. This guy's probably going to go away for a long, long time. And this isn't about him as a moral person. I'm not making any. Well, of course, I'm making moral judgments, obviously, but I'm not discussing that. So let's just move on from the personal aspects of his life and talk about just the fight. He fights Nakatani. Now, Verdejo was an Olympian, and he was often early on compared with Lomachenko, but you start to see problems with Verdejo. Maybe it was the bike accident, but he just quite didn't have the final it. Like, maybe it was just that fighter's character. He seems to wilt under pressure. You saw it in the Torres fight, and you saw it with Nakatani. He actually knocks Nakatani down twice. In the first and in the fourth, and it looked like he's going to blow him out. But Nakatani was, because of his size, because of his determination. You see this a lot of times with Japanese fighters. Like, you literally have to kill them to put them down, almost. Well, not literally, but you guys get what I'm saying. He keeps coming at him, and eventually he breaks him down and stops Verdejo. Stops him. And Nakatani was significantly the worst athlete. He was slower. He had worse footwork. He had the shidier defense. Everything about Nakatani was a grade lower than Felix Verdejo, except the fighter's character. The essence, what makes a fighter a fighter. That is what Nakatani has. You know, sometimes they call it heart, but I want to call it the essence in this case. Because it's not just heart. It's not the ability just to keep getting hit. It's the ability to keep getting hit, but also throw fire back. Also keep trying to find ways to hit your opponent. Because a lot of guys can just get hit and they kind of just don't go down. But he was finding ways. He's a much better fighter than advertised. A lot of people think this is going to be an easy fight for Lomachenko. I do not, under any circumstances, believe this is going to be an easy fight for Lomachenko. Do I think Lomachenko wins it? Most likely I do. Will I be particularly shocked if Nakatani somehow gives Lomachenko enough to maybe even stop him late or to take enough rounds Like, what if Lomachenko gets injured again? Here's the problem with once you're injured. And now this is the second time Lomachenko has hurt himself in a fight, or the third maybe. Once you are injured in a fight, your body, as you get older, is more and more susceptible to further injuries. Now, when we look at this fight, Lomachenko likes to fight in that dangerous zone, right in the middle, because he uses a lot of his movement to get around, to duck under, up and down, left and right. He relies a lot on his natural abilities. Nakatani, on the other hand, is going to try and smother you and outwork you and eventually break you down. That is going to be his plan against Lomachenko. So what do we have here as the odds? Well, we have Lomachenko at minus 2,000 to, again, this is on DraftKings, guys. And again, this is not advice. Please, you're grown people. You make your own bets. This is just what I'm doing. Whether you follow me is your own choice. This is absolutely not financial advice. Please, you're all grown people. So Lomachenko's a minus 2,000 and Nakatani's a plus 750 on DraftKings. Now, again, the problem here is no one is betting on Lomachenko at minus 2,000. It's too risky. It's way too risky. Again, what does that mean? You have to bet $2,000 to win 105%, right? Yeah, we're not doing that, guys. It's way too risky on a fighter who's aging, who's already been injured in fights, who is fighting against a guy who is a little bit younger, a year younger, but has also been able to weather really strong fighters. You know, even Teofimo landing almost at will was getting wilted a little bit towards the end of that fight with Nakatani. Do I believe he can stop Lomachenko? I don't know. But I think that plus 750 or plus 800, if you throw in the three-line money way, makes sense as a beer money play, right? So you guys understand, plus 800 means 8 times your money. You bet $20, you get 160 back. You understand me? That's what that means. So a little bit of BO, you bet $10, you bet $100, you get 800, whatever you wanna think of this as. So that's what that kind of bet means. Now, I will absolutely take a little bit of money and put it on Nakatani. You just have to. I think you just have to. And I think what you do is you're going to have to straddle that. Currently, DraftKings has Lomachenko plus 105 by decision after 12 rounds. Because the over 10.5 that's practically the fight, right? That's practically the fight. 10.5 means you have to go to the middle of the 11th round. So if you take Lomachenko by decision at plus 105 and you straddle that with Nakatani, you pretty much get yourself covered the entire way, except for if Lomachenko stops Nakatani. Can he stop Nakatani? He could. He could, guys. This is one of those things where while Nakatani was able to handle Teofimo Lopez, he was knocked down by Felix Verdejo. And here's where the difference is. Lomachenko oftentimes many times gets stoppages and wills fighters by virtue of hitting the body. Against a tall guy, that body's right there. Lomachenko does not need to go for Nakatani's head. So I want you to know that it is a possibility that Lomachenko gets the stoppage. So, you have to, again, that's why I said you making your own bets. But I believe the chances are that Lomachenko is not going to risk his hands. He's not going to risk his shoulder in this fight. He will not go for the stoppage. I believe Lomachenko will indeed try and box this out long term. He's going to try and stay out of trouble, try to see how the hand and how the shoulders feel. Again, this is also another risk about him injuring his shoulder. If he hurts it again, he will not be able to get that stoppage. It is unlikely. Again, Lomachenko is a southpaw. There's a southpaw versus orthodox. And of course, because Lomachenko is an aging fighter who just lost, and because Nakatani was able to stop Verdejo and gave Teofimo Lopez some trouble, I think it's reasonable to take Nakatani. So like I said, my bet is going to be the plus 800 for Nakatani in the three-way money line, and the Lomachenko by points after 12 rounds at plus 105. Again, plus 105 means you bet 100, you win $105. So, again, just so you all know, this kind of betting line means if Lomachenko wins before the 12th round, or in other words, stops him or gets the doctor stoppage or whatever, you lose on all those bets. A tie also destroys you here because this is a three-way line. So there you have it, guys. And again, a tie, everyone says, a tie, but a tie is much more likely in this fight than you think otherwise because of all these intangibles, because Nakatani is so big, because he'll consistently come at Lomachenko. There may be many rounds he'll be able to snag due to his size, or maybe if Lomachenko's injured again. So you have to consider all that. But I like the Lomachenko by decision at plus 105, and I like that with Nakatani to win outright at plus 800. Now, let's go on to the other big fight. We have Gervonta Davis going up to 140 pounds to fight the undefeated Mario Barrios. Let's talk about this fight because, again, this is also an intriguing one. Like, we get lucky. This has been a good like month, 2 months of boxing. A lot of good fights, interesting fights. Fights that we can predict. Again, we're trying to beat the casinos here. Let's go. Gervonta Davis, 24-0, 23 knockouts. Undefeated. Extremely heavy-handed fighter. Mayweather's protege. Southpaw. 5'5.5". Short guy, but here he is at 140. He is moving up since his absolutely disgusting blowout of Leo Santa Cruz at 130 pounds. An absolute monster of a knockout. It was an uppercut that he landed. Absolutely just ended Leo Santa Cruz. If you guys have not seen the fight itself is pretty good because Santa Cruz is putting a lot of volume on him. He made a mistake. Leo Santa Cruz threw the same right hand 3 times in a row, and that third time, bop. Gervonta Davis ducks to his right, throws that uppercut, and just ends the fight in one shot. It was explosive, similar to the Povetkin fight. So, here we are. Here he is fighting Mario Barrios. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about Gervonta Davis some more. Let's talk about Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis actually wound up stopping Jose Pedraza and giving Pedraza his first loss. He wound up knocking him out in the 7th round. In a fight that was relatively okay. Pedraza was doing okay in that fight. I thought Gervonta Davis was snagging the rounds, but he was doing okay. Now, Gervonta Davis sometimes suffers from, I want to say, it looks like boredom in the ring, right? He looks bored, but a lot of it has to do with just the level of opposition that he's fighting. None of these guys can really hang in there with him. Gervonta Davis walks around like I think of them when it was the Great White Hype. Eventually he's just like, wait a second. Like the champ is losing, and in the second round, he's just like, hold up a second, I'm the fucking champ. And you have a little bit of that with Gervonta Davis. He seems to be like bored with these fighters. Then he's just like, guys, hold the fuck up. I can just stop him. And stops him. That's the kind of fighter we're dealing with here. And he's able to carry his power. But here he is going up 2 weight classes. Well, technically he's fought at 135 before, so he's going up 1 weight class from his max, even though it was 2 from his previous fight. He fought Gamboa at 135, and then he, what do you call it? He fought Leo Santa Cruz at 130. Now he's going up to 140. Does he have the power? I mean, he's a short guy, 5'5.5". But who knows? Remember, when you're a taller guy, so let's talk about Mario Barrios. Mario Barrios is 26-0 with 17 knockouts. He's 5'10". He's significantly bigger. 4.5 inches. Actually, that's similar to Lomachenko versus Nakatani. See how the dynamic will play down. But a lot of times, when you're a significantly shorter fighter and you're a power guy like Gervonta Davis, Barrios is going to lean in a little bit to land those shots on you. And that's going to maybe be devastating. Absolutely devastating. So let's talk about Barrios for a second here. Barrios, he's a good fighter. He's got wins over Batir Akhmedov, right, who was undefeated at the time. He was 7-0 when he fought him. And he was like a knockout guy, right? He was coming in there, and I actually think he may have been favored in that fight with Barrios. And Barrios kind of laid it on him, knocked him down in the 4th and in the 12th. And while the other rounds were close, the power of the young man, Barrios, and he's young, he's 26, carried him through. Will he have the same success against Gervonta Davis? Now, that's the $1 million question. The casino odds here are significantly more, I guess, cautious, as they have Barrios at plus 375 in the three-way money line, which means you bet 100, you win $375, so almost 4 times the money. And Gervonta Davis at minus 500. Now that means the casinos are basically saying, yeah, this may be a jump too high for him. Gervonta Davis is still a significant favorite, minus 500, but you're talking about a 20% gain on Gervonta Davis. That's what minus 500 means. You bet $500, you win 100. You win 100. So that's 5 to 1 or 20% for you guys who like the math. What does that do for us? The over under is over 8.5. And the others obviously 8.5, both minus 115. So very difficult to pick a winning strategy here, because I think you always have to kind of see on Mario Barrios. Why? Simply because this may be a jump too much for Gervonta Davis. It just may be a jump too much. To put on that kind of weight, you're not going to be as fast. So here it is with boxing. I don't know, to those who have never fought at all, not amateur, not really trained, I felt that certainly about every 10 pounds, your speed diminishes just a little bit. Just a little bit. I felt completely different at around 160 pounds than I did at 170. Completely different. I felt faster. Maybe I felt stronger at 170, but I certainly was faster at 160. I felt faster. Felt like I moved better. And I think this is also true with fighters. You will still be relatively faster at the new weight class, but you yourself, by putting on the weight, will be slower to your previous self. So I believe Gervonta Davis will be a little bit slower and risks to be a little sluggish at 140 than he was at 130. Remember, this is almost 2 weight classes. He fought at 135 one time against Gamboa. Now, of course, he's fought at 135 before, earlier in his career. He fought at 135 against Mario Antonio Macias, but I think that's because, if I remember correctly, he wound up missing the weight outright. So you can tell he gets a little bit chunkier in between fights. What's his name? Gervonta Davis does. So you have to at least peak at Mario Barrios with the plus 375. You have to peak, right? And what else do we have here? Well, Gervonta Davis, his power, he's knocking people out at 95% rate. He really is. What we're here to figure out, can he stop him? Because Gervonta Davis by stoppage is a minus 162. If you take him outright to win by stoppage. Minus 162. Now, if he does stop him, when does he stop him, right? Well, if you look at Gervonta Davis's knockouts, he has, I'll tell you right now, he has 1, 2. He's got 2 knockouts which ended after the 8th round. One that ended at the 8th round. The Francisco Fonseca fight was KO'd in the 8th round. Gamboa was stopped in the 12th. And early on in his career, he wound up getting a KO win in the 9th against Luis Sanchez. So most of his stoppages have come before the 8th round. Meaning, if you believe a similar pattern to follow, then you take the under 8.5. That covers also the Barrios. You can double win there. Versus just taking him by KO or DQ or TKO, which is at minus 162. But I think it's much more risky. But if you believe that his power is going to be sapped, and Barrios, the undefeated fighter, remember what I said about undefeated fighters? Fighters who have never tasted a loss are much more likely to continue fighting. So an undefeated guy like Barrios may have the will to make it all the way through. Taking the distance outright, not even the over-under, but just taking the distance outright, is a plus 162. That's a pretty good odds. That means if you believe that Gervonta Davis can't carry his power to 140, but himself will not get stopped by Barrios, taking the fight to go the distance at 162 is pretty good. Right? But, here's another but. At that point, you may as well just take Gervonta Davis by points and take the Barrios to win outright. If you believe that Gervonta Davis can withstand the onslaught, you then take Gervonta Davis by points at plus 275. So you take Mario Barrios, similar to Lomachenko. You take Mario Barrios and you take Gervonta Davis by points. This, again, covers everything but Gervonta Davis stopping Barrios, which, again, is the problem, as Gervonta Davis is a monstrous puncher. Just a monstrous puncher. Just a monstrous puncher. But can he carry it? Can he carry it? You know, it's a question. Let's look at when he went the distance. It's been 7 years, guys. 7 years since he went the distance. That stuff. Is this going to be the fight? I don't know. But this is what I like. This is a little bit risky play for me. I'm going to take Gervonta Davis by points, similar to the Lomachenko straddle, and Mario Barrios to win outright at plus 375. Again, if Lomachenko and Gervonta Davis both stop their guys, I lose on both ends. And here's why I'm a little bit worried with the Barrios. Again, height is a disadvantage. But the problem becomes, like I said, if Barrios has to shoot down, that means he's going to be bending a little bit forward. That sets it up for just a bad time. A bad time. And we don't know, like Barrios is undefeated and he has some pop. You know, he's got 17 knockouts. But we don't know if he has enough pop to keep Gervonta Davis off of him. Gervonta Davis never looked particularly bothered in fights by power. And if you can't force Gervonta Davis back, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have some trouble. He will stop you. You know, this is a little bit like Munguia in that sense. You have to, although this is a significantly better fighter than Munguia. They're not even in the same, realm, I think. Gervonta Davis is a significantly better counterpuncher, significantly better reflexes. He's better on I think he's significantly better than Munguia, but the concept still stands. Against a guy with that much power, you can't allow him to just kind of like what he did to Leo Santa Cruz. He put the muffins on his head, walked Santa Cruz down in the corner, waited until Santa Cruz threw that right hand, and on the third straight right, he just timed him and ended the fight right there. So there we have it. That's the Gervonta Davis fight. That's the question. That's kind of where we're at. We have one more fight that I'm interested in seeing this weekend. We have the Erickson Lubin versus the Jason Rosario fight. Now, Jason Rosario actually made a name for himself by stopping Julian Williams after Julian Williams had beat Charlo. And Jared Hurd. He actually lost to Charlo by knockout. Jared Hurd. And in the next fight against Jason Rosario, Julian Williams just gets beat down and stopped in 5 rounds. And actually, Jason Rosario actually looked like a significantly bigger fighter. He's actually even short, you know, that I'm looking at. He's actually a size shorter, a half an inch shorter than Nakatani. Just to give you an example of how big Nakatani is. And that's like 3 weight classes lower. So this fight is taking place in Atlanta. It's super welterweight. It's 154 or light middleweight, whatever you want to call it. So again, Jason Rosario is 20-2 with 1 draw, 14 knockouts, 2 defeats by knockout. Here he is fighting against Erickson Lubin. Erickson Lubin was knocked out in the first round by Jermell Charlo, and that continued his dominating streak. You know, although, you know, these last 2 fights went to decision, Erickson Lubin is a strong puncher. He's 23-1 with 16 knockouts, and again, that 1 defeat by KO. He's 5'9.5", so he's going to be about 1.5 inches shorter than Jason Rosario. Now, Rosario here is the underdog, and I don't know particularly why. I think this is kind of like a 50-50 fight, simply because, you know, Rosario did beat Julian Williamson, and he did beat him well and clear. Sure, he was then kind of, I don't want to say abused, but Jermell Charlo came and put it on him. It wasn't close. He was down 3 times in that fight. Jermell Charlo, since that defeat to Williamson himself, since Tony Harrison, sorry. Since the defeat to Tony Harrison has been a different kind of different kind of fighter. You know, it's like he wants to prove that, much like his older brother, or I guess his heavier brother, he's the real deal. So he really put it on Rosario. But he got rid of Lubin even quicker. I mean, is this maybe a night test? Lubin seems to be the better boxer than Rosario, but we don't. I mean, he was stopped once. He can be stopped again. His last 2 fights went in decision. I'm probably not betting this, but let's talk about it a little bit. So Lubin is a minus 278, and Rosario is a plus 200. So almost 3 times your money. Well, 2 times your money plus your money back. You know, that's you can definitely put a little bit of cash to see what the deal is over there. If Rosario comes back recharged, you know, he still has the confidence of knowing he can take out a champ at this weight class, which is what he did to Julian Williams after Julian Williams beat Hurd. Now, again, we can say, well, look, Hurd is clearly a different fighter now. Yes, but we didn't know that before Julian Williams beat him. So I think with this fight, it's reasonable to take a little bit of money and just to see if Rosario wins. I don't really care about the over-under or anything like that. It's not the fight that I care to bet on. So for me, again, that's more. I just don't understand why though. I thought the odds would be significantly closer. I thought maybe it was going to be like minus 150 to like I don't know, like plus 100 or something like that. I just didn't expect. I didn't expect the odds to be as wide as they are, and I think this is pretty wide odds when you get plus 200 on a guy who was able to stop a former champ at this weight class and who did better, who lasted longer against Jermell Charlo than did his opponent. Yet he's the underdog. So I think it's worth checking it out. Again, in terms of age, Erickson Lubin is very young at 25 years old, but Rosario is only 26, and he's going to be smaller. So I don't know. I think it's worth having a little bit of cash to see what the deal is with Jason Rosario. So that's my take. And guys, again, this is going to be a nice weekend of boxing. I think this is the last one until after the 4th that we get anything like significant in it. So we're going to take like a 2-week break or so from boxing after this. And we had a good run. We had a really good run. We had some amazing fights, from the Devin Haney fight, you know, to the, you know, we had the Areola fight. I mean, we had a lot of fights over here. We won a lot of money. So it's a good run of boxing. A very good run of boxing. You know, we saw the Hurd fight, Hurd lose. Good run of boxing. And I'm excited to kind of have it capped off with Lomachenko, Gervonta Davis, both guys who are worthy of being in the top pound for pound ledger. These are 2 amazing fighters we're going to get to see. And I think they're both taking on real challenges. You know, this is why fighters become great. Nakatani is so much bigger than Lomachenko, as is Barrios bigger than Davis, that it's interesting to see how the 2 different styles are going to try and deal with the opposition. Now, of course, Tank Davis is significantly younger. He's 26 years old than Lomachenko. Barrios is his age, 26 as well. But it's going to be interesting to see, because I believe in many ways Davis is the future around this weight class. At 135. I don't really think he needs to be at 140. He's just too small. But 135 is perfect for him. And that's the premier weight class right now in boxing. So we're going to watch these fights. Again, I like Lomachenko by decision. I like Nakatani straddled Lomachenko by decision. Again, guys, this is, if you get a draw, Lomachenko knocks him out, you lose all your money. And I like Gervonta Davis probably by decision, you know, straddled with Barrios, or the other way around. So those are my 2 plays. I also like a little look at me money with Jason Rosario, simply because I believe the casinos are slightly overrating Erickson Lubin. So those are my plays for this week. Let's go. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
And he's strong man, good boy, you know, just